Back in May, Sony announced their new PlayStation handheld, to the absolute befuddlement of everyone. Later to be named the PlayStation Portal, the device looked premium enough, but its limitation to only remote into a PS5 left many feeling that it was a useless device that offered nothing new. I personally felt it was going to be another PSTV moment, in which PlayStation launches something on the back of their handheld brand without reading the room to see what the market actually wanted. From the start, it seemed like a cursed product that was going to leave everyone wondering why the heck Sony didn't just release another PlayStation Vita. But after spending a week dumping dozens of hours into games on the PlayStation Portal, I was very clearly wrong. While it has some obvious quirks, the Portal has a surprising amount of style and utility that might make it one of the best handhelds of the year for certain folks. Starting from the controls, the two controller halves do a great job at carrying over the same feeling I get while using a DualSense controller, mostly due to the fact that it's mostly the same controller. The face buttons are near identical, same with the shoulders and triggers, adaptive feedback and all. Both grips have about the same texture with nearly the same size and slope. The two main differences here are the sticks and haptics. Both thumbsticks are notably shrunk in diameter while maintaining the same height. Typically, larger sticks are better, but I really dig what Sony's designed here. They feel largely identical to their larger siblings, with the exception that I can now feel more of the stick cap at once on my thumbs. It feels like a nice compromise between compactness and functionality, and I'd love to see more handhelds adopt similar sticks in the future. As for the haptics, the main difference is that they're toned down a bit. If the DualSense's detailed haptics are at a 10, the Portal's at about a 7, maybe 6.5. From my perspective, the full experience still comes through though. It's just less in my face, and a game like Astro's Playroom that's designed to maximize haptics in every way. Which, if I'd have to hazard a guess, the toned down haptics are likely due to the Portal's large 8-inch LCD display, which might not enjoy stronger prolonged vibration over time. That display does look pretty great though. It gets notably bright, is large enough to feel comfortable for reading small text up close, and looks better than just about any other display I've seen on a $200 handheld. Its 1080p, 60Hz specs also align perfectly with the fact that most PS5 games are best played at a lower resolution to reliably hit 60 FPS. Not to mention, streaming services in general tend to hit the sweet spot of bandwidth requirements and stability at 1080p these days. Each of these design facets adds up to a device that's comfortable to sit with for hours on end. Which is great because at home, under ideal Wi-Fi conditions, using the Portal to stream from my PS5 has been an absolute joy. When Sony first announced that the Portal was streaming only, I was more than a little worried about gameplay experience due to how lackluster and inconsistent PlayStation Remote Play has been for me in the past outside the Vita and PSTV. Yet, over a couple dozen hours of play, it's been rock solid. Every few hours there might be a slight hitch, but it's minor enough that I'm not even sure whether to attribute the cause to the stream or my PS5. Without exaggeration, it's good enough that I could probably hand this to someone unaware and they'd have no reason to believe the game wasn't running on device. That experience alone could probably sell some folks on picking one of these up. But I think it's really the convenience of it all that's sold me. Outside big releases, I'm often hesitant to dig into my PlayStation back catalog, simply because I don't want to hog my living room TV, or else move my PS5 to a different room and miss out on spending time with my wife. The Portal allows me to sidestep that issue by having a comfortable, convenient method to play those games without creating a separate or elaborate setup. Heck, I'm tempted to even give my PS5's HDMI port on my TV to a different device altogether and play solely on the Portal for most games going forward. For other folks who are in similar situations, or even just want to play their PS5 games in a different room, I think the convenience of having an alternate, potentially more private, way to play games could make this PS5 accessory a must-have device. But hey, Playing PS5 games at home is cool and all, but the mark of a good handheld is how well it performs as a portable gaming machine. Unfortunately, that's where I've seen the most issues with the Portal. The first issue is the overall travelability. With it being about the size of a Steam Deck, I have to really plan ahead of time to fit it in my bag. It's lighter than a Steam Deck, which is great, but it also takes up enough space that it might fit awkwardly into a moderately sized bag, or not allow enough room if I also want to take another handheld, camera, or laptop, which is something I'll often want to do on a long weekend. Realistically, I'll also need to buy a dedicated case for the Portal to put it in a bag. Even if comfortable in use, the form factor doesn't inspire confidence as to the ability to stand up to jostling or impact if placed in a regular backpack without additional covering. Then, once the packing's squared away, there's also the matter of finding a Wi-Fi hotspot to get this thing connected, since the Portal's essentially an expensive paperweight without internet access. That, in itself, can be one of the biggest hassles for a streaming-only device like the Portal. Network speeds vary greatly between public hotspot locations, and streaming, in general, doesn't do well with low-speed connections. To try my own luck, I went to a couple coffee shops here in Chicago's North Side, each one a few miles away from my house. At each, I had very different experiences. The first was a smaller shop with password-protected Wi-Fi. Connecting to it, I streamed Astro's Playroom for an hour or so with virtually no issue. There were relatively more hitches compared to gameplay at home, but not so much to really take me out of the gameplay experience. Meanwhile, the second location fared much worse. This was a larger chain and had a more common unsecured network, as well as extremely low network speeds. While the stream connected just fine to my PS5 back home, I experienced frequent bursts of instability, where the stream would freeze, stall, or stutter. Considering the stream never outright dropped, it could honestly be serviceable enough for slower games in a pinch, particularly turn-based RPGs. Unfortunately, any faster games like Wipeout 2048 proved almost unplayable and really emphasized the need for a faster connection. PlayStation recommends at least 15 megabits per second download speeds to stream PS5 games. Your mileage may vary, but I'd probably recommend double that for a smoother experience, as well as a network speed check to level expectations before connecting in a public space. Oh, and there was another hitch to both locations. As with most public Wi-Fi hotspots these days, both coffee shops utilize captive portals to have users accept terms and conditions before gaining internet access. For whatever reason, Sony's decided to not include an internet browser on the Portal, meaning it's unable to actually accept those terms and consequently unable to connect to any network using a captive portal. This is obviously a huge problem for a handheld in 2023 and a real blow to user experience in general that feels likely intentional on Sony's part. Luckily, while irksome, getting connected to these networks is still not too much of a barrier for folks like me who carry a smartphone with them everywhere. At least on Android, all I've needed to do was connect my phone to the Wi-Fi signal and turn on mobile hotspot. Doing so turns the phone into a relay point for the Wi-Fi connection and makes an easy access point for the Portal. It's a bit inconvenient, but works really well, and as far as I've noticed, doesn't even impact my phone's battery life too much. Of course, if a Wi-Fi hotspot works, a 5G hotspot should also work, right? And yeah, again, it works just about as easily as any other wireless network. An always connected device that doesn't have a 5G modem built in is a bit of a drag, but I still at least have an easy method to use it essentially anywhere I'd like, as long as my phone has a decent connection, with a few caveats. At home, where my phone's 5G connection can get about on par with my Wi-Fi connection, the streaming experience was about the same as on Wi-Fi. However, trying to get connected via a 5G hotspot outside proved a bit trickier. In areas with strong connections, gameplay was reliably solid. But as connection speeds dropped, so did the connection's reliability. At one point, while sitting by the lake, the Portal even failed to connect to my PS5. even while I was able to connect on a smartphone without an issue, albeit with a pretty rough stream overall. Once again, it's a lesson to keep reasonable limitations for this sort of streaming in mind and test network speeds to set expectations. But in areas with good coverage, it does demonstrate that remote play isn't necessarily tethered to at-home use or special locations with public Wi-Fi. As an added note, I measured data usage a bit closer while playing at home and saw only about 1 GB of usage in a half-hour play session. That's honestly not terrible and makes 5G hotspots more of an option for folks with limited data plans who want an occasional quick play session on the go. Altogether, the PlayStation Portal has actually turned out to be a surprisingly solid and portable handheld that's already allowed me to crack into the library of PS Plus games I'd been neglecting. For folks like me who are really into PlayStation games, I think it makes a ton of sense. Though, before I close out the video, it is worth noting a few additional limitations which might impact your experience if you go out and purchase one of these right now. Probably the most damning to the most people is a lack of Bluetooth connectivity. My guess is that Sony probably used software to disable whatever Bluetooth connectivity came with the Qualcomm chipset powering the device. But, in effect, they've removed any way for users to connect peripherals, most notably headsets, to the portal. The only method to listen to audio other than upward-facing speakers is via something with a 3.5mm headphone jack. I personally don't mind using wired headphones, and think more folks would probably be happier if they embraced a wired connection more often, but not having the choice of Bluetooth rubs me entirely the wrong way. What's worse, Sony's lack of Bluetooth inclusion coincides with them implementing a new proprietary wireless audio standard only compatible with 2 expensive audio devices they simultaneously created themselves and failed to launch before the portal shipped to consumers. Even if they had a good reason for omitting Bluetooth, the entire setup comes off as anti-consumer, and I'm hoping that enough people fail to buy their earbuds and force them to cut their losses by enabling Bluetooth in a future patch. Another thing to keep in mind is that when I say the portal is a paperweight without an internet connection and PS5, I mean it. Quite literally, the only other thing I can do with my portal besides launching remote play is change settings regarding how I interact with remote play. I'm a bit on the fence personally about how I feel about this whole lockdown operating system beyond the obvious wish for some sort of internet browser, but at minimum, I do think it's a bit of a missed opportunity for Sony to not at least include PS4 remote play and a port of their cloud streaming app, especially since their cloud streaming service is currently inaccessible while using the portal. I don't have a ton of confidence Sony will actually expand the functionality at all of what's essentially a $200 PS5 accessory. Nor do I think that anyone should buy a portal if they don't have good home internet to actually make use of its sole feature. Expansion will likely happen when the community can get past PlayStation's lockdown Android skin without getting devices blacklisted. Even when a hack is developed though, the mid-range chipset on board will likely limit any additional functionality to other streaming services like Steam Link, Game Pass, or GeForce Now. But, it's not like folks really need the portal to do all that. The Logitech G Cloud already exists as a streaming-first handheld. Go buy that instead. It'll honestly be a much simpler experience than wishing the portal were a device it's not. Finally, one issue that really irks me personally is how the battery life is handled. This doesn't impact the actual gameplay experience as much as makes it harder to manage the device in general. Anecdotally, I can tell y'all that it feels like I've been getting the advertised 6 to 8 hours of battery life, and that standby battery drain has been incredibly minor. But it's hard to know for sure when the only indication of charge are 3 bars in an overlay that's only visible when I tap the screen. Without exact knowledge of how fast the battery is discharging, it's a bit of a crapshoot as to when charging the battery is actually necessary. What's worse, I now have a bit of anxiety when it hits 1 bar. One night I had my portal power off unexpectedly after its battery hit 0%. Currently, there's no notification when that's about to happen or any additional power management settings in general. Luckily, Remote Play is good enough to pause games when controllers detach, but it's baffling to me to see a device launch in 2023 that can't even communicate battery life to the user. Still, even with those strange caveats, the Portal shines through as this impressively capable accessory for my PS5 that makes playing my games much more convenient. I have a strong feeling that the types of folks who'd be dissuaded from buying a Portal on the basis of it only being able to stream from a PS5 or it lacking Bluetooth aren't necessarily the target audience. And, as much as I might gripe about it, power management does seem like something that can be patched in the future. But frankly, all these issues seem pretty minor overall in the context of someone looking for an additional way to play their PS5 games without taking over an entire living room or requiring a specialized setup. Sony advertises the Portal with the sole focus of it being an online-only companion to the PS5. And I think that focus really paid off in delivering a comfortable, convenient device that'd be hard to beat for $200. While it may not be a Vita 2 by any stretch of the idea, it does prove that the Remote Play concept Sony introduced with their previous handhelds still has a strong use case all these years later. In the next video, I'll be taking a closer look at the standalone Remote Play app, and whether folks interested in PS5 Remote Play could realistically get the same Portal experience by using a controller with a smartphone. Until then, I'd like to know what y'all are thinking. Have you already bought a Portal and have some thoughts you'd like to share? Are you considering a Portal but have additional questions about the device overall? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video interesting or informative, go ahead and click that like button to let me know, and then be sure to get subscribed for the next video on the Remote Play app, as well as more handheld videos in general. That's going to be all for this video though. Thanks y'all for watching. Till next time, catch you later.